Some of the most fun you can have being a Star Wars fan is simply the mystery and the theory behind everything. Characters, side stories, main plot points, even creating stories that feel like they should be there but haven't yet been created, or just creating your own stories is part of the fun of being a Star Wars fan. So oddly enough, one plot thread that was never followed, that we all thought was eventually going to play a role into the sequel trilogy, but never did, was the hand of Luke Skywalker. The hand that Vader cut off in the battle against Luke on Cloud City. Now keep in mind there is a Legends explanation for that plot point. Now Legends is obviously the George Lucas canon, everything that happened after Revenge of the Sith when he owned Star Wars, but now with Disney's canon, that's like a dimensional timeline. With Disney's canon, that doesn't happen. It is a different story now. Now, being the simp for George Lucas that I am, I pretty much love most of the stories that came out during his time of owning the company. Now, I'm going to be sparing a ton of details. I just want to get the main point across of what happened in Legends with Luke's hand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the secret tales of Luke's hand. When Luke's hand was severed during the fight with Vader, the hand fell all the way to the bottom of that Bespin tower they were in. The hand was found with lightsaber in hand, still gripped onto it, and it was tested. Now, years before this, Palpatine found DNA of an old Jedi Master from before Order 66. What he did was he cloned this Jedi. His name was Joruus C'baoth, or C'baoth. To be honest with you, I don't even really know the correct pronunciation of this guy's name. I'm just gonna go with Joruus C'baoth. When he cloned this particular Jedi, he became a defender of Palpatine's treasury during the Empire. Long story short, Joruus takes Luke's hand and clones Luke Skywalker. But it's not Luke with an L-U-K-E, it is a Luke with two U's, L-U-U-K-E. He is trained in the Jedi art forms, and he is more so of a dark Jedi. He definitely does have a lot of issues because the cloning process, especially on a Force user, has not been perfected, at least not until Palpatine did it in Dark Empire. So Joruus clones Luke Skywalker, and then he uses him as a plot device against the original Luke Skywalker and his soon-to-be wife Mara Jade and his whole family, and there's just this long story of how they just get into a fight, and Luke's wife Mara ends up killing the cloned Luke, and blah blah blah. Overall, that story is great. Like I said, I love everything after Return of the Jedi from Legends knowledge. I think the stories are super cool, and I think, does it work for a film perspective being on the big screen? Maybe not. Maybe that type of story of cloning Luke Skywalker and this Joruus C'baoth guy and Palpatine, it is very comic booky, but there is still a place for that because comic books are more of an important medium than a lot of people really understand. And really, at the end of the day, if something is written in a comic book, it is technically canon. You just don't see it on screen. Now, maybe those types of storylines wouldn't work on screen, but still, at the end of the day, you did have a cloned or revived Palpatine in Episode 9, and Snoke was constantly being cloned, so maybe it really isn't all that crazy, and it could work on screen. Disney now has a new canon explanation of what happens to his hand after Episode 5. There is an ongoing series of Darth Vader comic books right now, and it does take place after Empire Strikes Back. From the brief summary I've read after Episode 5, I think Palpatine is getting a little weary on Vader's allegiance to him, and he is sensing that there is still an Anakin Skywalker within the suit of Darth Vader. Sidious takes Vader to Mustafar in the exact same spot where Obi-Wan defeated him. He He removes his legs and basically says to Vader, if I even sense you using the Force at all, trying to put your legs back on, or just simply trying to survive, I will kill you. So Vader has to do it the old-fashioned way. He needs to reattach his legs and escape the planet without using the Force. Now, a little bit of a tie-in to the Rise of Skywalker. That bounty hunter, Sith assassin guy that Palpatine sent to recover Rey from her family on Jakku, or whatever was going on there. Ochi of Bastoon, I guess he is on Mustafar, and he was ordered by Palpatine to hunt and kill Vader while he was there. Not a big fan of that character, not a big fan of that storyline. It is what it is. As the comic goes along, Vader leaves Mustafar, and he ends up going to Exegol, which is where Palpatine is at this point in time after Empire Strikes Back. As Vader is walking around the halls of Exegol, very similar to what Kylo Ren was doing at the very beginning of Rise of Skywalker, he sees all these vats of Snoke, and he can now tell that Palpatine is indeed cloning. As he's walking around, Vader at one moment does look over to his side, and in one of the comic panels, you see Luke Skywalker's hand in a Bacta tank. If you even pay attention to the dialogue that Palpatine is feeding to Vader, he's basically talking about how Luke's hand is the scalpel of creation. He can use it to make anything. So I'm guessing at one point when Palpatine was figuring out the secrets to cloning, he was heavily using Luke's hand. Now, there is a scene in The Mandalorian where they find a bunch of Bacta tanks and there's a bunch of creatures that look like they are being cloned or created. We have no confirmation if he is still utilizing Luke's DNA to create those clones. We don't even have confirmation if Palpatine was cloned from DNA or essence from himself and then DNA from Luke Skywalker. What we definitely do know is that there is a high probability that Snoke does share a DNA with Luke Skywalker. They're trying to do all they can to connect the dots from what has happened in the original trilogy all the way up to the sequel trilogy. And I mean, it works, like in a way. I understand it, and I'm not opposed to it at all. It's not like I dislike it. 100%, I'm not gonna lie. I wish that if they were gonna go the cloning route and the reincarnation route, I wish they just did what they did in the older Legends books. But I mean, that's in the past now, and you can't change it. But at the end of the day, canon or not, I still think the legend story and explanation of Luke's hand and all of the details surrounding it, I think is just so much more intriguing and much more exciting. So if you want to find out what happens to Luke's hand, I definitely suggest that you go and dig deep into the Legends content. If not, maybe check out this new Vader comic from Marvel and Disney, because it clearly explains what's going on. And once again, everyone, make sure to like and subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all the content I am coming out with. And as every Star Wars video on this channel ends,
remember, the Force will be with you, always.